Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tower of Babble podcast. As always, I am Julian Mush. I am joined by Daniel D'Souza
What's up?
and Jeremy Kozier via Google Hangouts.
Hello.
That's his face here on the side here. We're broadcasting live on all the major platforms, so Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch. And you can find all that stuff at website towerbabblepodcast.com, as well as heading over and following us on Twitter at towerbabblecast and facebook.com/towerbabblecast. Okay, so let's get the elephant, address the elephant in the room first. I was going to say get the elephant out of the room first, but yeah, we haven't done one of these in a while. But we've been doing a lot of streaming, just exclusively Call of Duty, though, Warzone.
And one time Animal Crossing.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty good. Yeah. But I think a part of that is because we've been in a weird kind of world, where there's not a lot of news because nothing's happening.
Everything's kind of shut down right now, including productions on most of the things that we're interested in.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis the show, anyways.
There's not a lot of news because nothing's...
So, I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of news. There's not a ton to talk about. Everything's kind of frozen right now. That being said, there have been some releases. There's a couple trailers I think we're going to discuss. Mortal Kombat.
We're not discussing any trailers. No, there's zero trailers.
Zero trailers.
Spoilers for this show coming up. So this is 150, which is what Danny said. It's our bicentennial.
It's a bicentennial.
A bicentennial. And I was thinking maybe we'll do something fun, play some Nerd Association, which we haven't done in a long time. But then we were thinking about it, and it occurred to me that it really only works best when we're live. It's part of the reason.
No, we're live. It works best when we're all together.
Yeah, live in the same room, like alive in the same room. That's what I meant to say. And that's part of the reason we stopped doing it was because when I was in Cayman, it didn't make sense, right? Because then it was just me asking you guys questions, and then you guys just could make anything up you wanted, and there's no way to confirm or deny whether or not those things are actually true. So we paused that, and we forgot to bring it back now that we're doing a live shows again, which I think in video, which I think will be more entertaining going forward. So once this is all over, to celebrate, we'll play a whole round of Nerd Association, do the whole shebang, and that'll be fun. But who knows when that'll be, and maybe the world will never return to the way it was. But we're trying to be, we're not trying to be downers. We're not trying to be downers here, okay? So here's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how the world is ending. Just kidding. There is some virus-related news we kind of have to address, right? There's some Dune images that were released from the Denis Villeneuve film. There's a lot of Disney and Disney Plus news, as well as a few tidbits here and there from other things, including Star Wars and a couple stuff that we've been watching. So let's just dive into that. Again, you can follow us on Twitter at TowerBabblecast for all the latest on what we're doing. What else is going on? So let's start with this COVID stuff. So Comic-Con was canceled. Guys, this is the
first time in its history, right?
Yes. First time in 50 years. I guess it's been only around for about 50 years, but that's still a long time. Speaking of a bicentennial. So that's a shame. I think this Comic-Con would have been a little bit more... a little bit quieter anyway, especially from the Marvel standpoint. There wouldn't have been a lot of Marvel stuff. They haven't really taken part in San Diego Comic-Con for a little while. Anyway, we don't really know what's going on with DC's properties. I'm trying to like fill the air with like what we might have missed. It's hard to say because it's like, well, who knows? Because they would have revealed it there, but
it's a completely different question. Yeah. If there is no virus, this is sort of a transitional period for Marvel. Like we know their next projects, obviously the stuff that they've released into information, but like really this is starting at something new in the Marvel universe. So who knows what they want that to show at Comic-Con.
We might have seen something from DC vis-a-vis the Batman stuff, the Robert Pattinson stuff. So we saw some photos. We might have maybe got a trailer or some behind-the-scenes stuff, or like a panel where they brought up Pattinson in the suit or something. Who knows? We might still get a trailer around that time from Warner Brothers. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Wonder Woman was delayed. That was kind of like their big DC film of the year. Dune is their other big movie, right? And we'll get to that in just a second. But Jeremy, what do you think? Like, what do you think we might have missed, or or what do you from the even in the experience around Comic-Con? What do you feel like the cancellation says about it?
Yeah, I think it just sucks. I mean, we're not going to get any information, no teases, nothing. All that stuff's going to have to be saved for when we're reviewing these things. Like even on Disney Plus, like there might be major reveals at the end of episodes, at the end of the series, teasing new stuff to come because that's the only way to kind of get it out, which could be exciting. Like while you're watching that type of stuff.
Well, it would feel new for us because we're usually on top of all of it, and so we like know when these things are coming. So like, if they revealed something at the end of an episode of WandaVision, for instance, that would be like very surprising. I feel like for us, and new and novel.
Yeah, it would be exciting.
Yeah. And what about DC? I mean, we don't know a ton. Like I said, what's going on over there? The last feature film that came out, Jeremy, according to you, we haven't talked about it on the film on the podcast, but Birds of Prey, I think you said was I don't know. Do you want to say exactly what you said about that movie?
Can you remind me?
I think you said it. I think you just said it sucked.
You just said
Oh, it sucked?
I think you said it was worse than that. I think it was. You're fond of like saying it's the worst movie you've ever seen a lot lately.
I didn't say that.
Okay, that's good because I don't think it's the worst movie I've ever seen. But and I didn't love it either, for the record. But
we were talking about it while we were streaming Call of Duty, and at one point, Jeremy, you were just like naming other shitty DC movies you would rather see or see again. And it was basically all of them.
Right.
I haven't seen Birds of Prey. I can't comment.
Yeah, and friend of the show, Marcos, was on that stream, and he was asking, he's like, well, would you rather see Birds of Prey, or, and he's like just naming other like crappy movies. I think it came down to, would you rather see Morbius, based on the trailer we saw, or Birds of Prey? And I think we backed off. I think that was too much. That was a bridge too far. But yeah, I don't know. There's just too much unknown, and ultimately this is just going to push everything out one more year, right? Like, and I don't know if that necessarily means that we're going to get a really crazy packed year next year, where we're going to get like a lot of reveals that we would have gotten this year and as well as next year's, or if it's going to mean everything's just delayed to next year and we won't even really notice.
Probably just delayed because people can't really get together to create content. So
I know it's really, and it's kind of funny too because like everyone's out of work, including all the actors and the producers and all this stuff. So the actors are like on social media, like constantly, like going on, like I think there was a Jason Bateman did a live video the other day where he played "Was I in This?" where like people asked him like if he was in this movie or not, which I think is always funny if people remember the movies they're actually been in. But I think it's kind of funny because all these famous people just like have to be on the screen. Like they can't not just be in front of people's faces.
I mean, I don't think that applies to just celebrities. Like most people that I know personally are doing more social media stuff just because you have nothing else to do.
That's a good point.
Our roommate just downloaded TikTok. She's getting into it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to talk about that. TikTok is a bridge too far. Okay. Okay. The other kind of more downer bit is that according to this story by Variety, AMC Theaters, which doesn't necessarily impact us in Canada, but in the States, huge theater chain, probably the biggest, likely to go bankrupt, according to Wall Street Journal, Wall Street Analyst, sorry, not the Wall Street Journal, very different. But I don't know. I mean, like, there's just not as much of this kind of news in Canada about things like Cineplex, which owns like the Rec Room and stuff like that. But do we think like how does this change like the landscape? Not necessarily just AMC theaters, but like if large theater chains like that went away, is there becomes a vacuum there, right?
Well, I mean, it's a vacuum until such time as the supply is back, right? Like, right at this point, first of all, theaters are already kind of dying.
Well, yeah.
It was already on its way out kind of deal. And now, obviously, there is no cash flow, there's nobody coming in. So it kind of makes sense that eventually they will have to declare bankruptcy because they have no way to cover any operational costs. But once movies are being produced as normal again, once the big production companies want their movies out there, they're going to want theaters to release them. Someone's going to have to fill the gap.
Right. Because there's been some speculation over whether movie studios should just release these big blockbusters direct to video on demand, right?
And some of them have already started doing that. I mean,
Or quicker. They've definitely moved ones that were in theaters to VOD more quickly due to this. But I'm thinking, and I've saw a bunch of different tweets about this and read a couple different articles. Essentially, the Hollywood model as it exists today could not be supported on VOD dollars alone. It doesn't work that way. You need people going to the theater. So yes, theaters were quote unquote dying, but also movies are costing more than they've ever cost before, right? They're also bringing in more money. Things like Avengers, raked in the cash, right? Not every movie's doing that, obviously. There's no middle ground. There's no kind of double A movie anymore. It's just triple A and single A, basically, right? So I don't know. Maybe this makes more room for fewer blockbusters. Like I think studios might spend less money following this stuff, and just to see if people are going back to the theaters again.
I imagine, as with everything else, every other sort of service that becomes available once this all clears up, there will be a brief period, like a boom.
Right.
After that, I think more likely would be that any movie that's being released in the theater would be a blockbuster type, and you wouldn't get any of the other low budget movies in theaters.
Right. Well, I mean, it's tough because what then? But then where do those movies go? Or maybe they just don't get made anymore. I mean, it's too hard to say. It's too early. I think maybe. Jeremy, what do you think? Did you feel like theaters were already in danger?
Not really. I mean, if you look at Marvel, all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've made what, like $30 billion in the last 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So like that's where all the money comes from, right? Is the ticket sales. So there's going to have to be some sort of transitional period where if we're accepting that you can't go see these major produced things in a theater, then prices have to change on these streaming services so that everyone buys into it and pays for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they recoup those billions that they would have got if you went and paid $10, $15 to sit in a movie theater.
Here's a question for you guys then. Would you pay $10, $20 for a single use ticket to watch one of these movies at home right now?
I did that this morning.
Oh, did you?
So I watched that Mortal Kombat, the WBN
right.
Mortal Kombat. It was $20.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but so different kind of.
But same kind of thing. It's like they have to decide like price tiers, what that means, what you get for it.
Right.
And then eventually, if that works, if that rolls out, like these companies could be making more than $30 billion in 10 years because they'd be reaching more people.
Yeah, but I think it's the market is. Here's the thing: the market's not gonna grow. The market for movies is still essentially the same, right?
I think it's growing.
You think? Well,
yeah, but if it's available like on demand or easier access, then you're more likely to buy in.
But
if you have a device.
I just don't think it's like an exponential curve because the people then you cannibalize the audiences that would go to the theater, right? So there's some of the people who would go to the theater and pay their $10 to go the ticket, whatever $10 cheap ticket to go see a movie in the theater, may choose not to do that anymore and stay home and split that $10 and have the whole family watch on their screen, right? So but you might be exposing that to more people, right? So but at the same time getting less movie tickets out of the theaters. So ultimately you probably kill the theaters faster that way if we are under the impression that theaters are kind of in danger in the first place.
Well, I think what we're discussing there with the VOD stuff is them adapting to theaters dying. It's not them trying to put the theaters out of business.
No.
Theaters are going to die. There are few people able to go to a theater now, so this is an alternative. And it may be a shift in the market to more VOD, less theater stuff, because only the big budget movies can actually recoup their costs in the theater, essentially.
For the record, I don't want theaters to go away.
Yeah, nobody. I don't think anybody.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does. It's just if you have no other choice and that's available to you, like I think you're going to see a spike in it regardless because it's content that's new and exciting and fresh, and that's the only way to access it. It's like if you look at the video games, right? Everything is up. Subscriptions, video game purchases, online play, everything is up because like that is easy to access and get into it, and everyone's into it.
Well, and people are moving away from physical media there generally, right? So it's that whole market had already kind of been primed to be ready to be digital only, to be
I mean, here's a question then. Like, if you had the option, if they were digital release the same day as the
Right.
theater, you had the option to go to the theater or not. Obviously, the theater's an experience thing, right? And that's because of the screens and the sound systems. But if you had something,
It's like red wine and chocolate.
you had something
Experience.
yes, that was essentially the equivalent of that at home. Would you not rather just stay home and watch the
No,
movie?
I would go to the theater. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't know. That a
It-
lot
I
of
mean,
people make the same decision.
maybe it depends on the. That's kind of what I'm saying. That's why I don't think we can ever probably, at least not in the next 10 years, I would say. Okay, 5. Move to a day and date model with VOD and theaters at the same time.
Because I tell you, I love going to the theater. I love the experience, and it's a great way to watch most movies that come out. But the biggest downfall is the other people there, and if there is, if I
The biggest
can go-
downfall, did you just say it about it? You can say that about anything.
Yeah,
The
basically,
biggest downfall is just other people.
So if I can have it be same day, same price, and at home in a decent home theater, I'm all for that.
And not everyone has a decent home theater, so
That's
that
the
may
other
not
thing.
do that. But people don't really seem to care about that much because people watch movies on freaking their phones. There's that whole new streaming service just for your Quibi, that's just for your phone, right? So not that that's doing super well, but that's not the point. I would worry if we went day and date that would ultimately doom theaters out of existence almost entirely, and they would turn into essentially like really high end. It'd be basically the ballet and opera. Like you just like these rare experiences. You go a couple times a year, which maybe is the case for some people already. But like when I like to go to the movie theaters at least once a month, right? Especially during the summer when you got like the big blockbuster movies out. So I don't want to see that go away. And I would definitely, if Avengers 4 was day and date with on my screen, with the movie theater, I would go to the movie theater.
That's a good example of one of those movies that we've always said you have to see in theaters, but it doesn't apply to all films.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of movies like I guess most big budget films are designed to be watched in theaters now, right? And then when you start talking about like those Oscar movies and the Oscar bait films, that stuff, no, you probably don't need to see in the theater, right? But that's like we talked about something like The Lighthouse, which is kind of like, where does that fall? Would you watch that at home day and date, or would you go to the theater to watch that?
I mean, specific to that movie, it's a bit of a toss-up. Like, visually, the audio and visuals are very important in that movie. So I think you might need this theater sound system and everything.
You might argue that the audio and visuals are important in every movie.
No, I think it's some more than others, right? Like, you want to go see whatever that like Rampage movie with The Rock and the Gorilla. Like, who cares, right? Come on.
Sure.
You might enjoy it in the theater, but like those kind of movies are the ones that I personally don't care about as much.
But if I feel like it's a weird example to use because that would be one where you would get a better experience out of the theater.
To be seen in a theater,
right?
Yeah, so it's also one that arguably doesn't need to be in the theater at all or a movie at all. But
that's a different argument.
I'm saying Lighthouse is tough. I didn't see it in the theater, but I think it would be a really cool experience in like an art house.
Right. Jeremy, any other thoughts on the state of film going in 2020?
No, I think it's just on pause like everything else. I mean,
pretty much.
we're gonna have to wait and see.
Got to bounce back. Okay. We can move into some more fun topics now. Dan, Dune, I know you wanted to talk about this. They released a handful of images with the cast in costume. You're going to need to... So there's two kind of sides to this. There's for me and Jeremy, there's the fact that this movie is made by Denis Villeneuve, who is one of the best directors working right now, if not the best director working right now. It's hard to say. And that's where me and, if I can speak for you, Jeremy, I think that's where we come in to this movie.
Yeah. Director driven for sure.
Yeah. And then for you, it's more of like from the source material side.
Definitely.
Right.
From reading the books.
Have you seen the 1970s movie?
I can't remember what year it was made, but I've seen that one. It was later than that because it had
early 80s maybe then.
Yeah, mid 80s. And then there was also a TV series in the year 2000 that I haven't seen, and then another one, Children of Dune, which is one of the sequel books. That I also haven't seen. But yeah.
Okay.
I can't wait for this movie.
So tell us why. And again, I have seen the 80s movie.
Okay, don't.
But it's very strange. So I have a basic understanding of the plot, but you need to like just give us your like Cliff's Notes synopsis, elevator sales pitch.
It's in my mind, it's a perfect blend of sci-fi and fantasy, to a larger degree than Star Wars was, I think. It takes place in our universe, but about 20 something thousand years in the future. So it's so far in humanity's future that things are just night and day.
So it's opposite of Star Wars because that was a long time ago.
Star Wars is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. This is in our galaxy and a long time in the future.
Right.
Long time from now.
So wait, Earth is still a thing?
Earth is uninhabitable at this point in the Dune series, but it was like where humanity was born.
Okay, interesting. Jeremy, are you dying over there? What's that? Were you assassinated just now?
No, I just had to move an animal out of here.
Okay.
So it's close. No, it's a cool, like I said, it's a blend of both sci-fi and fantasy. There's a lot of mysticism in it as well, so it feels almost more fantasy than sci-fi for most of it.
Right.
There's at least at first, there's not a ton of space travel. There is some, but this exists in a world where basically computers and atomic weapons are illegal. They're non-existent.
Computers are illegal.
There's no computers, but there's still space travel. So the idea here is rather than evolving to technology as our society is currently, it's that in this world they decided to focus on maximizing human potential. So there are people that are, and part of it is with the use of a drug, the spice melange.
Yeah.
So they've increased their mental capabilities to the point that there are some people, mentats, as they're called in the books, that are essentially like human computers, and they chart out the space travel.
Right.
But it's a physical human being, or originally it was a human being that does basically all that computation.
Huh. Okay.
So it sounds pretty crazy, but it's got veins of, if you like Game of Thrones, there's different houses vying for power. There's a lot of the politics side of things like that. Murder, espionage, betrayal, all that cool stuff. Khal Drogo himself is going to be Duncan Idaho.
Yeah. So he said that it's a Han Solo-esque character. Is that? That's his words.
I guess in terms of his like personality, like he's kind of a scoundrel, like a ladies' man, sort of charismatic fighter type character.
Okay.
But he's unlike Han Solo in that he's very loyal to House Atreides, and he's not a rogue.
Right.
He's not on his own. He falls under people, and he obeys the chain of command,
which is very not Han Solo.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that does sound interesting. What did you get out of those images? Is there something that struck you out of them? I thought the Oscar Isaac photo was the coolest one.
Oscar Isaac, he's going to be playing Duke Leto, who is the father of the main character.
Right. Okay. Who's played by
Timothy Chalamet.
Timothy Chalamet. People love Timothy Chalamet.
He's good. So, it makes sense in this role.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Josh Brolin was really cool in that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well.
Yep.
I think it's Gurney Halleck.
What a crazy cast it is.
It's huge. Like, you guys gotta understand. This is it's on the same scale as Lord of the Rings in terms of fandom, in terms of the size and scope of the world that's being created here. So there's a lot of potential here because there are, I think, 5 or 6 different sequel books as well.
We know George Lucas was inspired by Dune a little bit for Star Wars. The whole idea of spice, which is a drug also in Star Wars, is more just like, it's more analogous to like an actual just drug, like a hard drug. But it's also called spice, and it's directly referencing Dune. So I think that's still pretty cool. And that's really that's my only true connection to the story material, which is because I'm a Star Wars person.
It's one of those crazy things, like, whenever I talk about Lord of the Rings, you guys, like, it gets to a point where I start using words that just, they could be gibberish or whatever. There's a lot of that in Dune as well. There's like a ton of it that just makes no sense. It sounds like some sort of mystical garbage.
Right.
But then the main character's name is Paul.
It's
all over the place.
Right.
Yeah. And his mother's name is Jessica.
Okay, explain to me how they use their voice as weapons.
Only some people are able to do that.
Okay.
First of all, and it's not. What do you want to explain? Like, there's people that are, their mental capacity is such that they can not necessarily control people. It's not mind control necessarily. But it's like they have increased their brain power to whatever the maximum human potential is, so they can outthink their opponent.
No. I'm thinking of the movie from 1980, whatever it was. I'm gonna look that up. The movie date. But they have like these things that like let them like shout at people, and then like they like get blasted like guns. You know what I'm talking about? Okay.
It's been a while.
Okay.
Is it like a device they wear?
It's kind of yes, but it's like I don't think it's enhancing so much as aiming their voice, which is and 1984 was the movie. Yeah. But yeah, it's very I'm very confused by this whole thing. The images look very cool.
Yeah, there's giant sandworms in there too.
Yes.
That's a huge part of it.
That's really, and that used to be my only like understanding of Dune was giant worms.
Right.
But I understand there's more to it than that.
There's much more to it than that. Yeah.
And the worms themselves are pretty important. Yeah.
Well, yes, they're so the spice itself
comes from one planet.
The one planet, Arrakis, is where Dune takes place. It's the sand planet. So those worms, when they're little, I think they're called sand trout, and they can transform any biome into a giant desert.
Oh, really?
And then they all die out, and the larger ones stay and become the giant sandworms. I think that's my understanding of mythology. I could be wrong. Okay. So this planet, obviously, at one point was not a desert, and now it is. And there's these giant, huge, larger than you can imagine worms that just bury through the planet all the time. They're not malevolent; they're just creatures, but they create the spice. That's why the planet is so important, and that's why all the politics center around that planet.
Okay. Jeremy, are you excited about this movie outside the connection to Denny?
Yeah, I think it's cool how they release these images, kind of showcasing the actors that are involved, and then more notably, like the unique art style of the suits and the clothing or whatever. It's just kind of a cool tease on its unique style. I'm excited for that. But just seeing these actors and knowing that Denis is at the helm here, and it's like this two-parter. Yeah, it's just super exciting for sure.
Yeah, that's an important point. It's two-parter. It needs to be at least 2 parts for sure. The first book.
Yeah, I think Denis said that he wasn't going to do it if the studio didn't let him do that. So that's pretty sweet.
Well, yeah, it's like it's the opposite of turning Hobbit into 3 movies.
They had the same thing with Lord of the Rings. So the original script they wanted for all 3 movies was going to be 2 movies, and then they brought it to the studio, and they were like, New Line was like, no, this needs to be 3.
Oh,
and thank God they did.
Yeah,
it worked out, but
could have been more, I guess, as you would argue, but it doesn't really, from like a storytelling standpoint, it'd be weird for it to be more.
Yeah,
than
it's
3
already
movies.
it's 6 books, but it's made it in 3 physical books. Like, why would you shorten it? Why would you do anything different? Than 3.
Yeah, and Dune is one.
Too much of it. There's too much of a commitment. Like the actors too.
Yeah, that was huge.
Like,
and this is on the same scale. So this is a very ambitious project for Denis. Like, obviously he is a prolific director, and it'll look amazing, but it's just something to. It's a challenge for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm my understanding is that he was really excited to do this following Blade Runner 2049, and 2049 is a almost perfect movie, and I think is a really great stepping stone as a director in terms of like from a visual perspective, and a complexity of storytelling perspective to go from that to this. It's really cool, kind of how his career is kind of like ramped up in almost a very like straight line, 45-degree angle, just like perfectly smooth. Like every story is slightly more complex, slightly more engaging, and just a more challenging project ultimately. And I think this is going to be like his obviously his hardest one yet, but there's just isn't much more difficult projects than this out there. Like, you know what I mean? Unless you start talking about some of that like crazy stuff that we've seen out of I'm trying to think, the guy who makes Devs, Alex Garland.
Oh, right.
Right? Like you start talking about that kind of stuff, and that's the only next kind of level I can see of it in terms of maybe not even next level, but like complexity of storytelling and next otherworldliness, We'll
see what happens. It's a pretty damn complex story. The challenge, or one of the larger challenges, is going to be that a good chunk of the story takes place via internal monologues. It's all in the characters' heads, because it's so much about their mental capabilities and how they think and outthink their opponents. So there's a lot of internal struggles. So translating that to the screen is difficult, because obviously a lot of that is not done through exposition.
Right.
But yeah, no, I can't wait to see what he has in store for us.
So the movie had a lot of.
Yeah, and that was a mistake, I think. The 84 movie, they did a lot of like just still shots on a character's face while they were thinking, and then they had voiceover.
Right.
Which is, it's a little too obvious, and it's not exactly subtle, and it's just like, it's like you're telling the story. You're just like forcing the audience through the story.
You're just reading the book to, to somebody. It's just not. It's not interesting from a.
It's just one of those things that doesn't work on screen as it does in a book.
Which is interesting because Blade Runner also, the original Blade Runner theatrical edition, which is the original movie, not 2049, also had a lot of that, and it was cut out very, very soon after because it was brutal. It just doesn't really work, and almost ever to have like internal monologue narrated at you. You know, you need to be able to like infer some of those things with your eyes.
Well, and the way it works well when it's successful in film is when it's a voiceover over like a montage or other stuff happening. If it's just on the character's face and you're watching them think, it's kind of boring.
It's like it's like, well, why do we need to?
Audiences are very sensitive to feeling manipulated, and that you'll feel manipulated. You're being told what to think in those moments.
Okay, so let's move on. We've got a lot of Disney news here. So Bob, last time we spoke on the last podcast. I mentioned that Bob Iger had officially stepped down as CEO at Disney, and then Bob Chapek had taken over. Since then, I just read an article in the New York Times. Jeremy, what's going on over there?
Nothing's going on over here.
Are you undoing and like redoing a zipper, or like what's?
I'm just trying to like sit properly in the chair.
Okay, so anyway, since then. The whole COVID stuff has taken over, and it's costing Disney $30 million a day, give or take, because all their parks are closed, their movies are delayed, all that kind of stuff. So Bob, the original Bob
one,
actually. So apparently, part in this story was interesting. So they call Bob Iger just Bob, and then Bob Chapek goes by Bob C.
Right.
So. He's really Bob too, Bob C. So Bob comes back in, right? And because he was in a chairman role, on the board, and it was basically his hands off, stepping back from the company. But all this started happening. He's like, well, I can't, in good conscience, just sit back and watch the company I ran for 15 years, lose $30 million a day and not, do something. So he's kind of stepped back into a leadership role. So it's kind of funny too, because I guess Bob Chapek is still technically CEO, right? And there's now this kind of like old boss, new boss thing, but they're kind of there at the same time, and people respect Bob, like the original Bob more, probably.
I don't know about that,
but like, or he ran for 15. He ran for 15 years, right? Sure. So he's got a kind of like a presence about him. If he comes back in. You think that the word of Bob C is going to have as much weight all of a sudden? Maybe not. All I'm saying is it creates this like interesting power struggle, I think, a little bit at the top of Disney during a very turbulent time, right? And word is that coming out of this, that Disney's going to have a lot less employees. Like they're going to like downsize in terms of how they run their parks, and a lot of things are going to change. But $30 million a day is not a small amount of money. So I just thought I wanted to mention that because I thought that was kind of an interesting kind of we keep an eye on this stuff. Like the stuff that's happening at the top of Disney decides the things that we see at the end of the day, right? So it is the biggest entertainment property in the world, right? It's important to keep an eye on it. How this will actually affect the actual movies we see on the screen and the shows we see on our on our televisions, yet to hard to say. Right. And we said this when Bob C took over in the first place, was because he's notoriously kind of a penny pincher, so budgets might get cut a little bit, and certain things might get pulled back anyway. So we'll see how that turns out. But I just think it's interesting that they didn't. Bob Iger didn't really trust Bob Chapek to kind of guide it himself.
I don't think it's that. Then you're inferring a lot. By saying
a little
that.
bit.
In my mind, it's more that like now is a bad time to have somebody new in charge. These are unprecedented circumstances.
Well,
so anything that's happening right now, it's going to look like it's not business as usual for anybody.
Right. But be fair, Bob Chapek does come from the company. He's been with Disney for a very long time.
It's still like the optics of it is that it's a change in leadership. Mm-hmm. There's somebody new at the head, and things are changing.
So what I'm saying, from an optics standpoint, Bob Iger coming back also has a certain look to it. And that's so when I'm saying I'm inferring things, I'm inferring it based on that action, So I don't know. who knows how this might affect it? But there is some good news. Disney Plus has surpassed 50 million subs. So that what's 50 million times what is it, $5.99 a month? Do the quick math on
300 million.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a so they might be losing $30 million a day, but they're making $300 million a month. So
there's more to it than that. Those are the only two figures.
Well, as far as those are the only two figures I have on my sheet here, Dan. So, here's an interesting thing, and I wanted to get you guys' take on this. So, Disney Plus has a bunch of old films, right, from the catalog or from the vault.
Sure.
Some things that used to be owned by Fox. Some things that are old Disney properties. Other pieces and bits that Disney's kind of acquired over the years. There's a movie called Splash. I don't know if you guys know about this movie.
I'm familiar.
Have you seen the movie Splash?
I have 3 sisters.
Okay.
I've seen the movie Splash.
Okay. So in the movie Splash, I believe it's about mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in the movie Splash, at one point you see a woman's butt. Anyway, the Disney Plus version of Splash has been edited with apparently very bad CGI to cover up the butt. So,
what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the question for you guys is, and this isn't a agree or disagree segment.
Jeremy, what are your feelings on butts in movies?
That's not the question. The question is it concerning to you that Disney Plus would be censoring that kind of stuff or changing things after the fact for older films? Yes? You find that concerning?
I was going to let Jeremy first.
Jeremy?
I don't know if it's concerning. I mean, I guess times have changed and certain things they just wouldn't release in the same way, I guess. I don't know.
It would be concerning to me if they were redacting or editing parts of the story. If it's something visual like that, whatever. Like Disney.
But
Plus
isn't that a part of the story?
It's the platform is for kids. What they could and maybe should do
is the platform for kids. I mean, just because it has Disney's name on it doesn't necessarily mean it's just for kids, right?
It's predominantly for kids.
Well, you have every episode of The Simpsons. You see, or get every episode of The Simpsons just for kids.
That's what I was saying. Something like what Netflix does is that you can have a kid's account and a
right.
You have like parental guide things, right? Like parental controls, I should say. So they could implement something like that. But right now, if that Splash movie is available for everybody, that means that little kids are going to watch it and watch a butt, and it's not a big deal. Everybody's got a butt, but Disney cares about that kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying I don't think that this is a behind the child parental protection kind of thing. This is every copy of Splash on Disney Plus has been changed. It's not just the ones that they've set for the kids, right? So what I'm saying is Disney's making kind of a decision for everyone, saying this movie is going to be buttless because we decided it should be, which I don't think it should, just because they've decided to put it on their platform, get to decide how the movie is released. You know what I mean? Like, you're ultimately changing the original film. It's analogous to the Star Wars original trilogy being edited and changed. It is.
It's very loosely,
but I mean, it is a little bit. And like, again, it's a slippery slope, because I think the other thing that I saw on here, and people have been kind of back and forth on this online, but another thing I saw about this is that some movies are being released on Disney Plus as the television cut version, which often is extremely cut down. Every swear word's removed.
Sure. Anything
that's even close to resembling anything that's racy is removed, and often in a very ham-fisted and like clunky way, right? And we're not clear on whether that's the whose decision that was ultimately, but I'm guessing it's not the director that they're asking whether if they should be changing that cut of the film.
Not for all these. For sure, if it's an older film, nobody cares. It's just Disney that they own it.
People care. People who made these movies care.
I don't think the button Splash is the hill to die on.
I'm just saying it's a sign that they're willing to make changes. If it was a movie that you cared about, and maybe I'm sure someone cares about that button Splash. All I'm saying is, if it was a movie you cared about that they changed, right, and there's no other way to see that movie, would you care?
It would depend on it's circumstantial, right? It would depend on the significance of the edits.
I guess they would probably rarely ever be like. I mean, it's hard to know, and that's the thing, because there could be changes to things that you've on there that we don't even know that they've been changed, and that's I just would prefer that those decisions remain in the hands of the people who made the films rather than the people who are distributing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they're not going to go through their whole library and call up every former director. And
Well,
be like, hey,
they made a decision on this. They obviously sat down and thought, okay, this button splash isn't cool. We're going to change it, right? So they made a decision there. There was work that went into it. It was bad CGI apparently. That I don't even know how they covered it. I'm not even sure exactly, but like, I don't know. To me, it is a slippery slope. It is concerning. To me, it is concerning. Yeah, I don't know. All right, Jeremy, any other thoughts on that?
No.
Okay. So this one's close to my heart. Disney is in the works. Has Robin Hood, their animated Robin Hood, set for a remake as a live action CG kind of Lion King thing.
Right.
So I'm on the fence about this because it seems dumb to remake a movie about talking animals who wear clothes and.
Why is that dumb?
Well, then to remake that with a live act, like what's the point? Why? First of all, a couple things. Robin Hood isn't a particularly popular property. It doesn't seem to succeed. Hasn't really worked in the last 15 years as a theatrical property. The other thing is, we don't need to remake every single thing that Disney has done, and it's weird to remake a animated movie about talking animals who wear clothes as a live action movie. It seems weird to me. That being said, maybe it makes more sense than doing what they did for Lion King, which I also didn't care for.
I think they make an equal amount of sense. They're just remaking their movies that have already seen success, that are near and dear to our hearts. But there's a new generation out there that hasn't experienced them, and this is going to be something new for them.
You always say that they haven't experienced them, but like those movies are available for them to see, right?
Okay, but that doesn't change the fact that they haven't, and this is going to be a new version of that they'll be attracted to. I really don't see the issue here.
I feel like you come at this from a different perspective than me, as someone who's like
clearly
been much more attached to Disney than I have since when I was a kid. You had three sisters. Then and you've seen a lot of Disney stuff since you were a kid.
I also like Disney. It's not just because I have sisters.
Yeah, but that's part of it, right? That's part of why you were exposed to so much of it.
No,
right?
Because I was a child and Disney movies are what kids watch.
Yeah, but not every. Then every single kid would be as attached to Disney, which I don't think is the case.
Okay,
Jordan. But I like Robin Hood. It's my favorite of those animated movies, or one of my favorites. I just ultimately don't agree with them, and we've had this argument before. I just don't agree that every single one of those movies should be remade, and we can fundamentally disagree on whether that's the case. But it seems, Jeremy, I don't know, maybe you'll get your opinion on this. What do you think about this? Is a little bit different than the Lion King stuff, and even the Jungle Book stuff. Because those are just
like clothes.
Yeah, yeah. Because they're like they stand and walk on 2 feet, and it's like
I'm sure they can still animate things walking.
No,
on
I
2
get
feet.
that. I'm just saying, not that it's harder or more difficult. It's just like it's a weird visual. Think about it, right?
Yeah, for me, it comes down to if they're able to start incorporating more of a wide variety of emotional gestures in the face, kind of lending towards not super realistic, but everything else is. I think that could still work.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this could be the testing bed for that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking.
I think it's inevitable. Everything's gonna get remade.
Yeah.
But to your original point, everyone will still exist, right?
Yeah.
So the necessity is whatever. It's just gonna happen.
I guess. I mean, yes, the original is still there, and nothing's taking that away unless Disney decides to censor it or change it in some way.
Right.
But I think that's kind of what I was thinking, Jeremy. That's a great point because the Lion King, when you watch it, is weird because there's a distinct lack of emotion in some of the face animations of those lions.
Sure.
And you can say what you will about those movies, but I just think that especially if you're going towards a movie with standing animals that walk and talk on,
it's super important that they're standing.
It's weird. It's just weird that they're anthropomorphized animals who are just replacing human beings. I guess is Robin Hood's a fox for some reason. It doesn't, which is fine for. It seems I don't know.
I don't understand why that's an issue.
But it's like if Jeremy's right. If everything looks like photorealistic, it'll be very strange to have a photorealistic walking talking fox, right? So you do need to change it up, and like, because then okay, think about this. Robin Hood. Think about again going back to Robin Hood. The character of Robin Hood himself. He's a fox,
right?
But he has like human shoulders and legs and arms. So is that what we're gonna get with this? It's like that's a weird visual, right? That's a weird visual. That's just like a furry human with a face, a fox face. That's weird.
Have you seen Fantastic Mr. Fox? Like
No.
they've done that
Star
concept in a
Fox.
million other movies and are just properties in general. It's been done. It's not that weird. Like it's weird, I guess, compared to a movie about people. But like,
To me, it's weird to make it photorealistic. I think that's the the bridge for me.
Here's the other point I would like to make actually about the Disney remakes is that those older movies, they are outdated. A lot of them are, and a lot of them need modernization. Like if you look at Peter Pan, for example, there's a lot of racism in there. Like if that movie is remade, and it's been remade a million times, if that movie is remade for modern Disney audiences, there's nothing wrong with that inherently. And it's just largely the same with Robin Hood. I haven't seen it in a while, but it probably needs some updating.
Well, the thing with Robin Hood is that we've seen the story a bazillion times, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that applies to everything that Disney does, right? They're all based on folklore and stories that we already know.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'll hold out my opinion. I'm on the fence about it. This one might be the one that convinces me that it makes sense, but they have to find that balance and make it look like fun. When Lion King didn't look fun, just looked like a documentary. Okay, so from the Marvel standpoint, we have James Gunn saying that Rocket's origin, so Rocket Raccoon's origin. Speaking of anthropomorphized animals.
He walks on 2 feet. What do we?
Yeah,
how do they even make this fucking movie?
No, that's different. That is different.
Doesn't it look strange that he's next to a person?
It is. It does look strange because that is an actual raccoon, right? The difference is between an anthropomorphized raccoon, right, that walks and talks, has a human form, and a raccoon who talks, right? It's different. It's different. It is technically different.
I don't understand how it's different.
Because Rocket Raccoon is not a human-sized person with a raccoon face, right? He's an actual raccoon, right? So in the Disney stuff, in the Robin Hood stuff, it would be a human-sized person.
Well, there's no humans in that story, so what's human?
Right. The Robin Hood would be. He would be a human-sized because could be living in a house and wear clothes and all this. They would be human-sized because everything would be the same size. All the animals would be the same size. They'd be all anthropomorphized into human shapes and sizes with different faces, essentially, right?
I guess I kind of get what you're trying to say, but I don't like. It's weird that you have this much of an issue.
There's a difference between Rocket and an anthropomorphized fox. Those are two different things. But his origin will play a larger role in Guardians of the
Galaxy. You should write a whole piece on that.
You think I should write a whole piece between the difference between Rocket Raccoon and Robin Hood?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get on. I have lots of time.
All the points you just made and analogies, descriptions,
right?
And how it just doesn't. It just isn't good.
They're both rodents. They both, they have fur. They both wear people clothes. They both
I don't
walk
think
bipedal.
I don't think fox is a rodent.
Fox is certainly a rodent.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's
Jeremy
in the dog family, Daniel.
I don't know about that.
Yes, it absolutely is.
I don't know. Well, they look like they should be a rodent. And they both walk bipedal and they wear people clothes, and it's going to be exactly the same, and it's not an issue.
It's not exactly the same, and it's not. Robin Hood wears boots and shoes and stuff.
What about Star Fox?
Star Fox is yes. Here's the thing: if it was closer to that look and style, that would be more ideal for a Robin Hood movie. But it's not going to look like that. It's not. It's going to be too real. That's the problem. I don't know why you're having such a hard time grasping this, Dan.
I don't think I'm the one having a hard time here.
We're also getting the Mario movie at some point, right?
That's true. And here's a question:
an animated one.
Who is he gonna speak in that movie beyond his normal yahoos and it's a me?
Well, it's the studio did the Minions, right?
Yes.
So
I'm sure he will be speaking in the movie.
He'll have to. Yeah. Do you have a bad Italian accent?
I don't know about that. That probably won't.
You gotta get the guy.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. If they get the guy who does his voice now, ultimately the only voice we hear from Mario, unless you go back to the Super Show, which is a bad Italian accent.
Right.
What's a Brooklyn accent actually? is just one-liners basically, right? Doesn't really translate.
Charles Martinet is the voice actor.
So What would you prefer, Jeremy?
No voice or a voice?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to go with voice.
Okay. You know with that, you're on that too.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. It's really tough to have a movie where the main character doesn't speak.
Yes, that would be tough. I would prefer a voice. I can't imagine what that voice would actually be. I think that's kind of the part of the problem.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna have to. Yeah, I mean, it could be a whole new take on Mario, right? Like it's gonna be this wild adventure through the Mushroom Kingdom,
Right.
and it's gonna have its ups and downs. Like I don't know, like it's crazy to imagine like
Luigi's
what
gonna die
Mario,
in his
Mario
arms.
movie could be.
Well, we don't. One exists, to be fair.
No, but I mean a fully animated one,
Right. Yeah.
that can like truly represent the game.
Yeah, I want it to be very stylish, and really adopt those like bright colors and be a lot of fun, and just like the Mario games are not really about the story, never really been about the story.
Yeah.
It's just
it's about the environments and the characters and what they get up to.
Right, it's just a framing device. So it's
exploration.
So we're just want to go on an adventure with Mario through the Mario. Then we're just gonna see, well, ooh, look. What I don't want it to be is just like, oh look, a Goomba, and oh look, a Yoshi, or you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that it could easily just end up being the whole movie, and I would worry that wouldn't really translate to like a compelling narrative,
I'm sure they're well aware of that as well. That there is very little story in the Mario games.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's a princess in a castle, go get her. So they'll have to develop something.
Right.
But yeah.
Do we have, before we go in, do we care about this James Gunn thing about Guardians of the Galaxy and Rocket's Raccoon's origin?
Not particularly, personally.
Okay.
Like he's fine. That's to me that sounds like though that's not going to be the entire movie is going to be his origin story, but
no.
we might go back to his origins a little bit.
I think Rocket's actually a secretly pretty cool character. Like I don't, he I think he had a pretty big role in the last Marvel movie and last Avengers movie, like larger than more people would have thought.
Well, he was the only Guardian to survive the blip, right?
Right, and it's like, it's weird because again, you're going to center a movie around a talking raccoon. That's an interesting choice, right?
It doesn't say the movie's centered around him. It just says his origin will play a large role.
Right. Okay, but yeah, it will be cool because I think he's a raccoon from the planet Earth, right? Originally, he's not an alien. Do we know that?
I don't remember. That's the thing. I guess maybe it's worthwhile because
he was like tested on or something.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So on the DC side, we got this little bit of news, which I thought was interesting, which is the Apocalypse War, which is the next DC animated film. Is going to be the final film in the quote-unquote new DC animated film universe, the one that kind of started with Justice League War. Yes. So what do you guys make of this? I mean, it's a little bit of like a melancholy thing because we really like those DC animated movies, and I think recently they kind of took a downward dip, but I think they've really come back up in the last little bit. So what do you guys think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think it's time. I think it's exciting to just kind of picture a new take, visual style, or just different continuation. They've adapted many stories already, changed them. People have hated them, loved them. So yeah, I just think it's kind of run its course, and yeah.
Yeah, I guess in a lot of those adaptations have been of like the newer arcs, right? This kind of maybe opens them the door up again for them to do some adaptations of some of the older books or some less known one or more obscure stories that we haven't seen. I think of things like Justice League Doom, which is an adaptation of the Tower of Babble, where we get our name from, story that is not
inspiration.
It's inspiration. It's not it's not exactly so. But like, and even that movie is just that the Tower of Babel comic book story is just inspiration for that movie,
right.
Not in that DC universe kind of pantheon of movies, but really good. One of our favorites for sure. More freedom might give them a little bit more creative, like the creative juices they need to kind of take it to the next level and maybe change up some visual styles a bit and stuff like that.
And they were already kind of doing that, right? So at a certain point, they were doing like 3 a year, and one of them was a standalone, the other was canon sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now that just frees them up to do more of those standalones or develop something new entirely.
Well, and maybe they. Here's a crazy idea that just popped in my brain. What if it is what they're doing is opening up the door for them to do stuff back in the DC animated universe again, right?
Sure.
Because we just got that movie, Jeremy. What was it? The most recent one.
What was the most recent one?
The one with the Green with Cruz, Jessica Cruz as the Green Lantern.
Was that the most recent one?
I don't know if that was the most recent one, but that was one of the more recent ones. Right. I guess no. Red Sun was the most recent one. The one before.
Yeah.
That one is unofficially officially in the DC animated universe, like where the Batman the animated series and Superman the animated series and Justice League exist. Maybe they're saying, hey, that's something we want to go back to. We want to tell new stories in that universe, and that opens them up to be able to do that. That's just an idea. I would be very much okay with them doing that. And I'm also okay with them doing new stories too. So, and ultimately they would be new stories just in the DC AU, which I know there's a huge fan clamoring for people to come back and do more stories in that visual style, which is very distinct, but also with those same voice actors and tell some new stories, because it kind of wrap things up at the end of Justice League Unlimited, but and there's some stories in Batman Beyond and stuff like that. But I think people would love to see new stories in that. I'd be happy with that. Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, great, good, grand. I guess I'll just mention I would agree with you guys that the actual new film universe never felt that cohesive to me to begin with. So it's like it doesn't feel like we're missing out on too much here.
Well, and because they were adapting stories that we were already familiar with, it's like we already kind of knew. We weren't really following a narrative all the way through. It's like I could drop off and pick it up whenever I need to, sort of thing.
And the most exciting part is that they're changing. They gives them the ability to change the visual style, because I think we can all agree that was getting a little old. That one same look, something fresh.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it, and they use the same style WB for the Mortal Kombat one that we're going to talk about.
Okay, cool. And then I guess we can do that, because I can just mention this stuff down here. So Dan, do you want to tell us about Mortal Kombat: Scorpion's Revenge? This is the same animation studio behind these DC movies, kind of venturing out. This is something certainly unexpected, I think, a little bit, because although we've seen Mortal Kombat movies before, we've had live action ones. We had some shorts on the internet, I think, at one point.
Legacy, yeah.
Yep. Oh, you just totally hit the camera there.
It's fine. Fixed it.
Did you?
Yeah, it's fixed.
Okay. Anyway, it's not. It's fine.
It's good enough.
It's good, I guess.
Well, I'll just scooch over here. There we go.
Anyway, tell us about Mortal Kombat.
It's super exciting to me, but it's more exciting because it's a chance that they will make more of these, that there will be a series of Mortal Kombat movies. It's very much left open at the end for sequels. Largely, it's a very traditional story of the first Mortal Kombat game and the first movie, the first tournament. But they do change things up a little bit towards the end. I won't spoil anything.
Enough to make it feel fresh.
Yeah, like it's a story that you already know. It's a different version of the story you already know, but it's a cool animation style. It works well with the martial arts. Obviously, it worked with all the DC stuff as well. Mm-hmm. The choreography was amazing in those movies. Very much the same here. Obviously, because it's Mortal Kombat, they really it's hyper violent. There's a lot of gore.
Is there? Interesting.
Yeah, okay. Hyper violent. They use a lot of the X-ray from Mortal Kombat 9.
They use that. They use that a lot.
So there's a lot of periods where Scorpion's fighting somebody and he puts his spear through somebody's skull and it X-rays through. So it's very cool. Graphic in that sense. But it's well done. All the voice acting is perfect. Joel McHale from Community fame.
Your boy
is Johnny Cage, and obviously that's a very similar character to Jeff.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So that works really well for me. It's interesting. It's the story of Scorpion's Revenge, which I'm sure we're all familiar with.
Yes, Dan. But
I don't.
Just for the sake of storytelling, why don't you just give us just a quick recap?
Well, I can't, because that would ruin the movie. It is actually the story of
it. Okay.
But anybody who's played the original games or any game in the Mortal Kombat saga knows Scorpion's story. Basically, his clan, his ninja clan, and his family were killed, and he is on a path of vengeance. That's basically it. There's more nuance to it, but it would ruin.
Sub-Zero comes in there somewhere.
Well, Sub-Zero, it's the Lin Kuei and Sub-Zero that massacre the Shirai Ryu, that's Scorpion's clan. So they massacre them, and Sub-Zero kills his family. So the Scorpion wants to kill the first Sub-Zero, which is Bi-Han.
Ah, okay. All right, and that's this movie.
But that being said, this movie is almost like, yes, Scorpion's in it, but he's not necessarily the main character because it's the story of the first tournament. So yeah, Liu Kang's a huge part of it, Raiden, Johnny Cage, Sonya. It's very much that story, and then some tweaks at the end that are more Scorpion-centric. But yeah, no, I very much enjoyed it, and I'm very excited to see more.
Did they tease a follow-up?
Yeah.
It's left open?
It ends very similarly to the way the first tournament ends, so now an MK2 animated movie is in the works, I would imagine. That's something that's being planned.
Interesting.
One thing that they changed up that I thought was less than ideal for me was that the tournament itself wasn't a traditional fighting tournament. Like, there are a couple moments where it almost looks like a video game where it's like, one of like the original, like the 2D,
2D plane,
and that's fine. But the tournament itself is kind of almost more like a Hunger Games, like Battle Royale. They all go to the Shang Tsung's island, and then he teleports everybody because I guess he has decided who from Earthrealm and who from Outworld will be facing one another.
Right.
So he just teleports them all away, and then like they're just on the island somewhere, and they end up meeting somebody, and it's like, yes, it's a Tarkatan or it's a Saurian, but I don't know. That part didn't work for me.
But Daniel, what you don't understand is that battle royales are very popular right now.
No, I get that. It's just like I like sort of the tournament style, like that. There's a crowd, there's an audience watching.
Who was the audience exactly?
So Shang Tsung invites a bunch of people to his island, but at this point, that's the 10th tournament in the Earthrealm versus Outworld tournaments. So it's people from both of those realms. So
it's just like people who are aware of this happening and are just like coming to watch.
Yeah, a lot of them are from Outworld because it's the 10th tournament. If they win the 10th, they get to take over Earthrealm.
Right. Okay.
I don't know.
Jeremy,
it's great.
Jeremy, do you? I don't think you've seen it yet, but are you planning to?
I have not seen it yet. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch it.
Okay.
You gotta watch it.
What's your kind of attachment to Mortal Kombat as a?
I've just always liked it as a kid. It was one of the first games I played on the Genesis, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was just always drawn to the characters and their stories and unlocking their story endings and whatnot.
Okay. Have you kept up since with some of the newer games and stuff like that, or just kind of the story through Dan?
Pretty much through Dan. Yeah. It's
okay.
I'll ask him every now and then what's going on.
Okay. So yeah, I'll give it a watch. It feels like it would be a fun kind of re-examining of. I've definitely seen the movie recently-ish. The last kind of 4 or 5 months, I feel like we rewatched it. Didn't we watch it as a group? I feel like we did.
I wasn't there. That's insane. How was that?
Yeah, maybe when we recorded a podcast at my house, I probably
I feel like we watched it.
You had it on in the background, maybe.
Yeah,
we ended up just like watching the whole thing.
So there would be a fun re-examining of that, and obviously like with MK9 recently, recently was that 5 years ago, maybe more.
God damn, yeah, something like that.
That kind of redid that whole story as well. Like this is kind of like a. But it seems like a lot.
It's
of this
different from
story.
that one as well. It's another, like, this could be effectively a new timeline as well.
Oh,
like that one is.
Okay.
Because it's just some very minor tweaks.
Interesting. More timelines is what Mortal Kombat needs.
Well, it only has 2 right now, so yes, it does actually.
All right. Okay. All right. What else is going on? Dan, have you watched anything else lately?
That's it for like anything new. We watched Lord of the Rings with our roommate the other day. She had never seen the movies, so that like really put a nickel in me. So I'm rereading the books right now, and we're gonna finish the series. That's kind of what I'm focused on.
So we watched The Fellowship.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen that movie in a while. It's been.
And you said you hadn't seen the extended edition.
Does it hold up, Julian?
It does actually. There's some parts that don't, that are a little like so that. From a visual standpoint, that don't necessarily hold up. And Dan was explaining that like there's this one particular cut that's supposed to be months or years worth of time that is not well conveyed.
No. That in the books it's 17 years, but in the movie it doesn't make sense for it to be that way. It's not shot that way, and you're not meant to believe that in the movie.
Okay. But like, I think in rewatching it is that it is extremely dense ultimately. Like Dan mentioned, and that like if you were moving in, like coming into this world for the first time, didn't know anything about it, it'd be a little daunting. And there's a lot of like, there's this one middle part in when he's like riding around and like checking all this stuff when Gandalf's riding around and like we don't talk that same kind of cut, that like montage of things happening. So much is happening there and so much is talked about and said, and then you're like, if you had no idea what was going on, you never read the books, you might feel a little lost there, and maybe they would think to redo it in a little bit more digestible way if they were redoing it, but maybe not. I don't know. That's the only kind of thing that really stood out.
A lot of
that
stuff is stuff that will make sense later on after having finished the movie, or even after finishing the third movie. In terms of like Minas Tirith and stuff. Yeah. But like to tie it back to what we were saying with Dune earlier, because they're both on that same level and they are very dense. There's a lot that you need to absorb in order to understand these movies. I think one of the smartest decisions they made when making those movies was that opening sequence, the prologue. The history became legend became myth part. Because it just sets the stage. Like, you have to just walk people through, okay, there are elves, there are dwarves, there are men. They were given rings at this time, blah, blah, blah. This is what this ring does. Like, it's just like a quick cliff notes through so that everybody's on the same page to start.
Is that whole line of dialogue that's being narrated by... I can't remember the name of the elf, whatever. Galadriel. Anyway, by her. Is that from the book directly, or is it that's written?
That was written. Like, obviously, some pieces of it are like taken adapted from the text. Yeah. But no, that was written by, I think it was a combination of the three of them, right? Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens. But I think Philippa Boyens did most of that.
Okay, well, it's pretty good. That is well written, I would say, that opening thing. Okay. What else? I have been watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Right. And the most recent episode came out on Friday, and this is the fourth final episode, so there's only 3 more now in the entire series. And oh boy, was this episode a doozy. It was so good, guys. I just need to and I've been doing recaps with a friend of the show, Rachel Wilkinson, every week, and we'll be doing another one of those. I'll be recording that tomorrow, and I'll try to get that up tomorrow as well, tomorrow being Monday. So maybe around the same time that this episode goes up. It's hard to say for sure. The 20th or the 21st-ish of April. Anyway, this is the let me back up. So the first 2 arcs of this movie, of this series, of this season. The first one was lost episodes, or kind of an arc that we've seen animatics for, that was originally intended for the show before it was canceled when Disney bought Lucasfilm, right? The second arc it was very Ahsoka-centric. It's kind of, you could argue, isn't the best. It feels very much in line with some of those like C-3PO, R2-D2 kind of arcs that we kind of saw that it like can be fun, but feel kind of like a detour a little bit from the story we've been telling. But ultimately, I think in the long run will serve to be a little bit more worthwhile than that, because it kind of develops some of the feelings that people have towards the Jedi at that time, outside of the main cast that we're used to, like the regular folk. Sure. And then also kind of develops Ahsoka's character a little bit and how she sees the Jedi Order. So we fast forward to this episode, and there are basically, at one point in this episode, there is a line that's a direct reference to Revenge of the Sith, and it sets the timeline as this story is concurrent with the events of Revenge of the Sith, these last 4 episodes. They say something, and they say, we're going to jump to hyperspace, and we'll be there within an hour. So they're 1 hour away from the beginning, the opening shot of Revenge of the Sith, which is them jumping.
This latest episode is.
Okay. Right. So it starts, the beginning of this episode starts right before Revenge of the Sith, right? And it even has this really amazing opening sequence, because it opens with a green Lucasfilm Limited title card, which is the only time we've seen that is in the original Star Wars movie in 1977. So it automatically feels like very like, okay, this is big. And then it starts with the title fair, the fanfare, the Star Wars fanfare that's never been in actually played in a Clone Wars episode before, right? And it's in red, right, instead of yellow. So there's a lot of things like, wow, this is big, and ultimately I think it's going to feel like a kind of a 4-part, sort of a one large kind of prequel or story or kind of side story to Revenge of the Sith. That's going to give it a lot more depth, I think.
So weird because and ostensibly in the next 3 episodes you won't get any Anakin or Obi-Wan, right?
No, not at all.
Because their story's being told in Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
So this will be largely, I'm assuming, Ahsoka
Mm-hmm.
and whoever else is around.
And they do this really good moment where Ahsoka, when she steps off the ship, when she meets Obi-Wan and Anakin for the first time after having left the Order, where it plays the Jedi theme, right? And it really gets like, hey, if you weren't sure, she's the main character of this arc. Okay. It's very important. And by the way, from the voice acting, from the animation style, it looks so good, guys. Like, it's leaps and bounds from where it was when it first started, that original movie, and even compared to Rebels, which looked better at the end, but is just so much better looking than that. The visual effects are just out of this world. It opens with this battle sequence on a like a Outer Rim world, and it's the opening sequence I was mentioning is how there's always this like recap that they do that kind of says, and it's the narrator that says like, hey, this is what's happening. Here's what's going on. Just trying to set the stage, and it sets the stage with, hey, the Yoda and the Jedi Council have sent their generals out to the far reaches of the Outer Rim, right?
Right.
Because the Separatists are launching this big battle, and then they cut to and they show the same freaking Jedi who got killed in Order 66, like, and it's like holy, it's like it just guts you, and it's just like you can just see how they're lining the pieces up, and it kind of gives a little bit more little depth again to the episode 3 because ultimately Palpatine, knowing what was having planned this all out, engages in a large offensive at the Outer Rim, knowing that they would send their most experienced Jedi out to the Outer Rim, so they weren't at Coruscant when things when he made his power play, right? Because if he had to go up against an entire army of Jedi who he probably wouldn't succeed, right? He can beat 3 of them really quickly, but probably not 50 of them,
Well, he did. In episode 3, he kind of did take care of those 3 very quickly.
Well, I know that's what I'm saying. And like, we can all
almost like without any effort. Almost like, like, what's the point of being a Jedi?
Well, I mean,
two of them didn't even draw their lightsabers.
The Force... They were clouded by the dark side. So their vision. Anyway, don't worry about that. This is giving a lot of interesting depth to this story, and ultimately, Order 66, because this is the Clone Wars, right? This whole series has been about being with the clones. There's a distinct line in this episode that says, loyalty means everything to the clones. Anakin says that, and it's. We're thinking about Order 66. This is being made in a post-Order 66 world where we know this has happened, right? And you can kind of start putting those pieces together ahead of time, and we're going to be able to see this happen from Ahsoka's perspective and Rex's perspective, who we've never seen before, and kind of get a lot more, backstory. Because last season, that was kind of years ago now, had already dove into this idea of the chips inside the brain, the clones' brains that make them turn, all that kind of stuff. So I've already seen it twice, the episode.
Okay.
I would recommend, if you haven't watched the Clone Wars, you can absolutely jump in with these last 4 episodes. If you, as long as you know who Ahsoka is, right, and you know who the Mandalorians are, I think you'll do just fine. There's a lot of detail that you'll be missing by not having seen previous episodes, and particularly some of the Mandalorian stuff. But you will get a lot of really great action. There's a really amazing action sequence with Ahsoka coming down from a transport and just ripping through people with her lightsabers. And then you're gonna have if you know who Maul is too, that's very important. You need to know who Darth Maul is, and that he is still alive and he has robot legs. You have to know those things. But if you know those things, you can get so much out of this. I think even if you want to wait for these 4 episodes to finish and then watch it as like a mini movie and then watch Revenge of the Sith right after, I think that would be like a really cool experience. I'll just keep you guys updated on that. It's pretty cool. The final episode is gonna be premiering on May the 4th, which is Star Wars Day.
Cool.
May the 4th be with you. there's also that same day, which I think is really interesting, is the first episode of an 8-part docu-series on The Mandalorian will also premiere on Disney Plus that same day.
That'll be interesting because I really want to understand that crazy
the LCD screen thing.
I still can't picture it in my head.
So that's gonna be really cool.
Oh.
I just, if you go back and look at what has come from Star Wars since the purchase from Disney, there's been some really, really high highs and some really low lows, I think, for certain people. But I think this is, if you want to have that quintessential Star Wars feeling, you are going to get it here. Sure. George Lucas has been calling Dave Filoni and giving him nice little comments and stuff that on the episodes as they've been airing, which is really fun. This is from Sam Witwer, who voices Maul. Apparently, he told this in an interview. It just, the show means a lot to George Lucas because it was the last Star Wars thing that he was involved with before it was sold. Before he sold it.
Right.
And it's ultimately the end of the story that he originally told. Right. This is the last of the prequel stuff, and that was the last stuff that he did. Right. So I think he's kind of still a little attached to it, and we know that Dave Filoni is kind of taking up the torch a little bit in Lucas's absence, and everything that Dave Filoni's done in my mind with Star Wars has turned to gold. So very much recommend watching that. Jeremy, you've been watching Tiger King.
I don't know if I've been watching it. I've watched it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I moved on since.
Okay. Okay. We don't have to mention it. We don't have to mention it then. I'm fine with not mentioning it.
No, we don't need to.
Okay. Have you seen anything else? Read anything else? Played anything else?
No, just playing the usual first-person shooters.
Just playing Call of Duty. Oh yeah, you've been playing a little bit of. You dusted off your PS3 and you've been playing some Battle or Star. What do you know? Not Star Wars. Some Battlefield Bad Company 2, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Most of the people online are Spanish. Still playing.
Really? Okay.
I've noticed.
Are you picking up any words? Any
Spanish? A couple here and there.
Yeah.
It's funny when they try to call me.
The fact that there's still servers online at all it seems like a miracle to me. I'm gonna try to track down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty adamant on you guys trying to experience it again because it's still super fun. The sniping feels amazing.
It still holds up.
It still holds up. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to boot it up every now and then. So
yeah,
I'm enjoying rid of my PS3. There's no way.
10 years old the game is as well.
I would love to. Jeremy, you were mentioning that you wanted to maybe record something on it. I would love to do that, so we'll try
even when I've been playing, it's I wish some of the I could capture some of it because really cool things happen, and I think we could make a really cool montage.
Yeah, those games are always great for that.
Yeah, all the Battlefield games are good for that, and I haven't played the last two really, and I'm kind of really hoping that the next one is another modern warfare style setting. So we can kind of jump back into that same feeling. Playing Call of Duty just makes me kind of more nostalgic for Battlefield stuff because I've just always gravitated towards that more. So that's really interesting. I've also been reading. This is recent. This is interesting. I haven't done this in a while. I picked up my iPad and I went to Comixology and I bought 2 comic books. I bought Batman: The Adventure Continues, which is they're $1 each, and they are comics based. The idea is they're picking up the story where Batman the animated series left off, and they're being written by Paul Dini, which is really of the show fame, right. Which I think is really cool. And the first 2 episodes or comic issues. That's the word I'm looking for. Installments have been really good. I thought. In fact, if you want to, there's somewhere on the internet you can find Kevin Conroy actually reads the first issue, which is kind of cool. So you can read along with him. I think that's pretty fun. And they start bringing stuff in with Lex Luthor's in the second issue, he's in the first issue. I think he's in both actually. But basically, they referenced the Batman Superman joint adventure where the Joker and Lex Luthor team up.
The world's finest.
Yeah. They reference that, and it's a lot of so far it's been a lot of fun, and I would, if you're nostalgic for that show at all, it's $2 for the first 2 issues, definitely worth it. And I've also been watching Westworld season 3. I'm not going to say much about it. I just say that based probably the last season because the ratings haven't been great. The budget has already been cut pretty severely. But I would say that if you fell off in season 2, there's probably a list out there of the core episodes you need to watch. Just watch those ones. There's some really amazing stuff in that second season, kind of the more standalone stuff, I'd say. But this third season does a really cool job of like exploring a futuristic world that feels very believable, but exploring these this idea of fate and destiny and some really interesting stuff. So and it looks beautiful. It's a very good looking show. So definitely check that out if you have HBO as well. So that is all I've got. Any final comments, thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, I mean, slow news week, slow news month, right? I mean,
well, yeah, it's been a while.
We'll keep putting the show out, and hopefully there'll be more to talk about in the near future. And we're going to continue doing the movie club and all that kind of stuff, and maybe look at doing more evergreen sort of creative content. So we'd have to stay tuned for that.
We're planning it. Call of Duty takes up a lot of time, so we end up not doing
arguably too much time.
Yeah.
We'll probably be on there tonight too. So.
I guess the other, and I would also like to say thanks to all of our Patreon subscribers and listeners.
Right.
I hope you guys are all being safe and staying safe.
And the non-Patreon listeners.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean to everybody. Yeah, I mean to everybody.
Every human being out there.
Yeah, but I mean specifically, I want to shout out to Marcos, to Kevin, Gregoire, who is in the chat today. Marcos has been on a lot of our streams, and we got to appreciate that. Got to shout out
teaching us how to play Call of Duty.
Really, yeah, it's been extremely helpful. And by the way, and I know I've mentioned this on a couple of my Star Wars shows on the small screen Star Wars stuff, but we did pause for a 1 month the Patreon donation. So next month, all Patreon subscribers won't be charged, but they'll still maintain access to everything we're doing. We're not planning on changing our content drop very much. I mean, obviously the podcast has not been coming out as much as we'd like, but there still has been content. Between the Star Wars stuff and the Call of Duty stuff, we're continuing to do that and continue to put out the shows and continue to put out the movie club stuff. So those things will all continue to happen, and we just won't be charging you. So we hope that helps, and we want to say we appreciate everything you guys have done so far. It's been huge. So. Again, look for more from us. Stay tuned to our Twitter at Tower Babblecast and Facebook.com/Tower Babblecast for any news and updates. And I guess we'll be back soon. It's hard to say exactly when. We'll be back soon. This, as things change, we'll try to stay on top of it. But especially if there's any big breaking news, we'll try to stay on top of it as well. But we'll be back soon with more Tower Babble, more.
Probably more Call of Duty.
More Call of Duty.
We'll be seeing that soon.
More Star Wars stuff for sure. I mean, there's another 4 weeks of that guaranteed, and then maybe I'll get you guys on if you guys can catch up on that last arc. We can maybe just talk about that last arc a little bit.
Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars. Anyway,
probably more Animal Crossing too.
Yeah, basically there'll be more stuff. Just follow along. We'll be back with more. We'll talk to you guys soon.